Hey, I came out to Tunica, Mississippi to actually, my plan was to work really hard on my legal work. Uh, I go back to school in a month, and I wanted to just write lots of letters, complaints against, complaints to give to law enforcement. And, well, my plans got changed. So the plan was I was going to work. I had brought my computer, and I was just going to take breaks to get in these little satellite tournaments for a tournament series that's coming up next week. Actually, the first satellite I got in, I won. And I was the first to win. It's a race instead of a outlast. And I was first to get there. And so I am going to be playing next week in some of the regular tournaments where you actually win money instead of a ticket into the next level. But anyhow, that was the plan. Only I got sick as a dog. Oh my God, I thought I was gonna die, and it would have been okay because I was in so much pain. And it's funny because what my legal work is about is how UAMS imprisoned my son for 2 weeks and battered him by doing like physical things on him, like catheterizing him, taking his blood, tying him to a bed so that he couldn't leave, and then chemical things like forcing him to use fentanyl, which is they were using as like a pain reliever, and or that would be what their claim would be, but it was actually just used as like a chemical restraint. So, they're like misusing anesthesia, like pretty harsh anesthesia, to just like induce a coma in someone who does not want to be there and who has said, no, let me go, stop. And they're like, basically, fuck you. We're going to do what we want. We're doctors. We're nurses. We know what's better for you. So they did all this because he was brought in there after an apparent traumatic brain injury. And there was one EMT who mistakenly said that it was from a fall from 34 feet. But he wasn't there, and he didn't say the patient said he fell from 34 feet. He just proclaimed it, which, is bad, and that was probably negligent on his part. But he didn't continue to repeat that over and over as if it was the truth. But the doctors and nurses and patient care technicians at UAMS just continued to say, yeah, he fell 34 feet. It's a miracle that he's not dead. Like, it's a miracle that he didn't have any lacerations on his body, and that he, looks like he broke his nose, and apparently he did break his nose in the fall. But it's a miracle, is what they claim. Instead of Occam's razor. Oh, you mean he didn't have lacerations on his body, and he had some bleeding from his nose and in one ear, the right ear. It's important that it was the right ear and not the left. And but like basically nothing else. I mean, his vitals were all healthful. Like if you went in for your yearly exam and you had these vitals, well, I know I would, like if I had those vitals, oh my God, hallelujah. So, but no, the doctors and nurses and patient care techs at UAMS said, oh, he fell 34 feet and just didn't get hurt that bad, but we know he's going to get worse. And one doctor, I hope I'm not misattributing this quote, but one of the doctors, I'm going to say it was either Bruce Nolan or Benjamin Davis. I think it was Bruce Nolan, but anyways, whichever one it was, said, and the others agreed, that he doesn't present that bad, but he's going to probably get worse. His presentation is not as bad as his CT scans. Well, for one thing, CT scans show old wounds as well as new. But regardless of that, the CT scans didn't show any active bleeds. It was all stable. So I'm getting okay, sorry. So anyways, we went through this whole thing at UAMS, and it was like, so yesterday I had this terrible headache, and I woke up with it. I had it the night before, I think. I'm not sure. No, I think I woke up with it, but it was terrible. And it felt like I had to clamp my head, like try to press in really hard. I kept thinking of, and I can't remember the name of them, but probably it's just clamp that you use when you're in the wood shop. And I was wishing that I had one that I could just like screw down onto my head. In fact, if there are any doctors watching this, that would be like a nice little tool that might help with headaches naturally. And you might want to consider doing some research into or tests, is just like having a clamp. And I don't even know if it would have to be a medical person who invented this, but to have a clamp that like screws tighter and tighter, and then you just like lay there with that on. Anyways, I'm digressing. Get used to it. And so I had this terrible headache, and I finally asked someone for acetaminophen. I can say it. Acetaminophen. And this nice lady gave it to me, and then I knocked her out of the tournament, so I've really felt terrible about that. But she was a very nice lady. She shared her meds with me. And it worked. But, the funny thing is that UAMS doctors and nurses and the patient care technicians who are going to claim that they just were following orders like the Nazi guards. But they forced all this medication on my son. And I had planned to write about that. Like there's got to be a law enforcement agency or person or some way that these doctors and nurses, at least the doctors and nurses, get charged with criminal conduct, because they have said in writing, in court documents, their lawyers have said on their behalf that it was not negligent. So if it's not negligent, but they did it. They did actually give him medication without consent. They did actually tie him to a bed, naked. Yeah, they're real kind of weird sickos, but like everyone's got their kink. And so they did all of this to him, and so far there's been no repercussions that I've heard of, and they are admitting that they did that. And if it's not negligent, it was intentional. And so, why don't they just say the words, we saw a big paycheck, somebody's got to pay our $500,000 a year salaries, and we saw this man who had $1,000 in his wallet and who we mistakenly thought owned a kind of custom mansion in the hills near the hospital. And we just figured, hey, we'll hold him for just forever until we had all his money, because he had no insurance. So he was uninsured, and they claimed that he wouldn't qualify for Medicaid, which is another idiotic thing, because Medicaid is income-based. So they're saying we have to hold him in the hospital. They literally said that they wanted him to stay there for like 6 months of rehab. And doesn't that imply that he's not going to earn a cent for like 6 months? And they were saying that he was incapacitated to make decisions for himself. But doesn't that imply that he probably isn't going to go out and be like a big earner like they are? That like he's probably not going to be able to get a job or do a job. So, they're saying one thing out of one side of their mouths and another thing out of the other side of their mouths. And so I planned on working on all this, but instead, all I could do was sit at the poker table and find out how incredibly easy it is to play poker, because basically your cards play themselves. Like the lawyer for UAMS, Sherry Robinson, and the lawyers for the doctors also. Like, I think Glenn Ritter repeated this. It's like the medical records speak for themselves. So, which is kind of idiotic, but because like records don't speak, plus it's what the doctor wrote in there. So, it doesn't say everything that the doctor knows or did, or it's only what they wanted to put in writing. So anyways, the cards play themselves, and I've had this terrible headache, and I've been playing, and the first tournament I actually won. I was the first one to win. It's a race, not a outlast. And so now I just took a nap after playing in the morning, and I didn't win, but I did okay. And now I'm going back into play again. It seems like all I can do is stay up for about 3 hours and then I have to take a nap. So hopefully I get some work done later.